What is going on, everybody? It is Dylan with the Astrodfs, bringing you a brand new video. Today's video, I'm going over Monday's two-game slate contest. So, not really a showdown, it's a two-game slate. I like two-game slates. It's a little more variance, but this two-game slate is not the prettiest on paper right now. So, hopefully things are better than what they appear. So, let's get into it. So, I got the spreadsheet pulled up. As you guys can see on the right-hand side, I have the key. Green is like, yellow is injury, whether it be out or questionable. I don't have smash plays. This won't be on YouTube. That's for subscribers to our Discord. So if you guys are interested in that, click the link in the description. We can go over all that process and what we offer and stuff like that. Orange is value. So might not be the greatest play, but there is some value there compared to some of the other pieces. And then a blue purplish is fade. So starting on the defenses, just because it was simpler to do. I have the Saints and Browns as the two defenses I like in this matchup, right? Saints going against the Panthers. Panthers' offensive line has not looked good. Atlanta got some good fantasy points defensively against them. In the preseason, Bryce Young looked very pressured a lot. The Saints defense has some real good pieces on it if they play like they did last week against Tennessee and pretty much shut down the run and pass. Saints defense is pretty good. It's pretty good. I do feel like Carolina has a good shot to run the ball to get some yards, but passing it doesn't look good. And yet again, this is on paper, right? I was wrong yesterday. I got some plays that I thought were Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Did not happen. I thought those were my plays. Anthony Richardson gets hurt after having a great first quarter. So yeah, I'm not perfect in any way, but on paper, Saints defense obviously being the most expensive defense, but I think they are the most projected defense that I have right now. I do believe the Browns can get there too, right? Playing Pittsburgh, their offensive line is shaky. Deontay Johnson out now. So you're asking Allen Robinson and George Pickens, two guys known for not creating a lot of separation to get separation. And that Cleveland defense has just looked really solid. Granted, it's a one game sample size, but they were able to shut down Cincinnati pretty good. But it's hard to say too because Cincinnati didn't look good at all in the first half against Baltimore. But there's still a lot of dangerous weapons on that Cleveland defense too. Like I said, my thing is just going against a very shaky offensive line. Number one wide receivers out, so that brings some interest there. And then the Steelers I have as value. So I don't think they're not playable. I think the Steelers defense can be playable too, right? Pittsburgh gonna be, or Cleveland's gonna be missing Amari Cooper, which is a huge piece there, right? They don't have a lot other weapons outside. Realistically, Elijah Moore and David Njoku, I'd say that's probably your best bet. Obviously, they have Nick Chubb. There's an injury on their offensive line. They just lost a tackle for the season. So, I mean, that stuff you have to consider. That's why I have the Steelers as a defense. I'm going to get a little bit of exposure to, but I'm going to prioritize the Saints and Browns defense. And the Panthers defense, I don't think I really want them, to be honest. J.C. Horn is gone, so that kind of sucks for them. He's a key piece in that secondary, so we'll see what the rest of the secondary can do. See if the pass rush can get to Derek Carr, but Saints offensive line looks like it's holding up, and it's all depending on what Derek Carr can do. Obviously, I think if Kendre Miller is in, that's a huge plus for the Saints offense, but we'll see there. So for quarterbacks, Deshaun Watson being the most expensive. I like Deshaun Watson. I see opportunity. Against Pittsburgh secondary. Don't get me wrong, though. TJ Watt just makes his defense good. He just does, right? Pieces fall in. He gets a sack. That's huge momentum. Cleveland known for having a good offensive line. Nick Chubb, solid running back, right? Going to get his yards. Might not get 100-plus yards, but definitely going to get his yards. Now, I wish Amari Cooper was in. That would make me like Deshaun Watson so much more than how I do right now. But at 6,400 with the quarterbacks on this slate, he's a guy that I like. There's two quarterbacks that I like. Derek Carr is the quarterback I like most, right? 6,000, so he's second most expensive. Mid-tier pack though, 400 more than Bryce Young, 600 more than Kenny Pickett. The matchup against Carolina secondary is just good. I believe the Saints have a lot of opportunities, top to bottom, in the run game, in the pass game, to be very efficient. Derek Carr is known for getting yards, right? Touchdowns and leads and wins are a different story, but getting yards. So at 6,000, he seems like the safest, best play for me at quarterback. Bryce Young, I don't trust it yet. A division game, a rookie quarterback in a division game is never really great, right? It's not something you really want to target. Now, granted, you can just go back to yesterday's matchup of Anthony Richardson and CJ Stroud. Richardson had 2 rushing touchdowns in the first quarter. CJ Stroud almost threw for 400 yards, so that's something completely different. But this matchup, I just favor the Saints defense against Bryce Young. And then there is value on Kenny Pickett being the cheapest quarterback by 1,000 to save some salary. Granted, 6,400 for a quarterback isn't crazy though. So I'm definitely getting more Deshaun Watson, Derek Carr than Bryce Young and Kenny Pickett. So Bryce Young, I'm not really playing at quarterback, if at all. But we'll see what my exposures look like. And then running back, $2,300 more than the number 2 running back is Nick Chubb, and I have him on a fade. And I'll take the heat if he has a pop-off, explosive, good game. Obviously, Pittsburgh missing a couple pieces, one crucial piece on that defensive line, so that could be a factor. I also look at Cleveland having a banged-up offensive line too. Amari Cooper's out, so Nick Chubb could get a little more involved in the pass game. We'll see what that looks like come tonight, but as of right now, paying $2,300 more for a running back, I don't know if I'm sold on that yet, right? I like Najee Harris. A lot of people don't. I get it. I don't love Najee Harris in this matchup. There's only so many running backs that are on the slate that are playable, though. So if Kendre Miller's out, that's one running back less on the slate to play, right? And it's not saying that like Tony Jones you can't play, Jerome Ford you can't play. Like, obviously you can get some exposure to him, but Kendre Miller's a real threat. Kendre Miller, if he's active, becomes a play that I like. Good receiving back. So Najee Harris is someone I'm going to get exposure to. Now, I'd rather get Jamal Williams and Miles Sanders than Najee Harris. But when you're paying $2,300 cheaper for, Chubb to Harris, that's something that I look at. So I don't think it's wrong either to have Nick Chubb in the sense of the way your roster is built, right? So you're paying up for a defense. The cheapest defense is $2,900. Usually you can get a defense for $22,000, maybe $2,000 if we're lucky or unlucky. So you're paying $900 more for a defense. Quarterback, I think that's a solid price. $6,400, pretty cheap for a quarterback. Running back, $2,300, right? So you're paying up there. Tight end, the most expensive tight end is David Njoku at $4,700. Wide receiver, the most expensive one is Chris Olave at $7,200. So I get playing Nick Chubb. I just don't think that you have to play him just because you have the salary to play him, right? I got burned yesterday on Jamar Chase. Why? I like Jamar Chase. I had the salary with the cash running backs. They were chalk. Like, I get it. I just don't think I'm sold there yet. I like Najee Harris for getting some receptions, right? Jaylen Warren. I like Jaylen Warren. If you want to play Jaylen Warren over Najee Harris, I don't have a problem with that, right? I just know Najee Harris is going to get volume one way or another. If it's good volume, that's out of my control, right? I know Jaylen Warren's going to get volume as well. Is it going to be good volume? I'm not sure either, right? I like Cleveland's defense in this matchup, right? I like their run block advantage, so being able to stop the run, but I like Najee Harris as a good dump-off running back. You're paying $1,400 cheaper for Jaylen Warren, so I don't have a problem if you want to play Jaylen Warren. The only reason I don't have him at like is because he's technically the RB2, right? It's a $1,400 pay down, so he's a really good value. I'm going to have pretty close to, if not the same exposure to Jalen Warren as I do Najee Harris. So I don't want anyone to take it as I like Najee Harris way more than Jalen Warren. It's really close. It's just a small advantage. It was kind of same thing as Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery yesterday, right? I liked both of them. I just gave that little slight advantage to Gibbs being a little more expensive, right? They balance themselves out. Jamal Williams, if Kendrick Miller is out again, Jamal Williams becomes a very solid play, right? Tony Jones Jr. is the running back behind him. After that, it's a lot of question marks. So if Kendrick Miller's in, Kendrick Miller, I'm definitely getting exposure to. I really hope he is in. It would definitely help out my lineup process. So we'll see what happens there. And then Miles Sanders, Chuba Hubbard, I have not liked. Miles Sanders, they brought in for a reason. They want to use him. Had a good game against Atlanta, a solid game. So Miles Sanders at 5,700 is definitely, if you want to run Nick Chubb, Miles Sanders is a really good RB2 to have in your lineup. Very solid play. Jalen Warren, I mentioned. Kendrick Miller's another name. And that's pretty much it for running backs. Tony Jones is there. If Kendrick Miller's hurt, I would get some exposure to Tony Jones. Jerome Ford, I mean, you can get two. But that's pretty much it as far as running back. And then tight end, it gets even uglier. So David Njoku and Juwan Johnson are my two tight ends I like in this slate. Njoku 4,700. And I only like him because Amari Cooper's out. If Amari Cooper was in, I don't know if I love this as much. But obviously I think he moves into kind of the number one target share with Elijah Moore. That's just the way that I see this scenario working out. Somebody else might be able to step up for Cleveland, but as far as targets and stuff like that, and the most reliable guys on that offense, it's Elijah Moore and David Njoku. So David Njoku, 4,700. Juwan Johnson, man, I'd like to say we saw what could happen with Kyle Pitts and Juanu Smith against Carolina. Man, it was bad. Juwan Johnson, I think, is a solid play, though, in this. The only couple of things that worry me is Taysom Hill is known for a primetime game explosive, right? Like, just randomly coming out of nowhere. No one has any huge look on him, and he comes out and has a good game. Hopefully, with Derek Carr, they feel solid enough with him. Maybe if Kendrick Miller's in, that's something they do. They like to get creative like that. And then Jimmy Graham, Foster Moreau, like they use these guys. So that is one worry about Juwan Johnson, but he did get a lot of snaps last week. So I'm very, very confident of playing him at 4,100. Pat Freiermuth against Cleveland right now, I'm not sold on that matchup. I just think it's a poor matchup for him. You could play him. I'm not going to be upset with you. I'm just personally going to stay away from him. I just don't like the matchup as good as David Njoku, Juwan Johnson, as far as targets and opportunities, and just the matchup. So Hayden Hurst, another one that I'm fading here against New Orleans. Yet again, it's just they shut down Chig pretty good. So obviously Hayden Hurst was a huge reliable piece for Bryce Young in week one. Had a solid game against Atlanta. I just don't trust it. I like New Orleans defense. So two values I have at tight end is Harrison Bryant, tight end number 2 for Cleveland, and then Connor Hayward got some targets, got some snaps in last week's game. So 2,700, 2,900 are some value pieces. Like I said, there's not a lot of plays. Like Jimmy Graham, I guess you could say is a play, but there's not a lot. And then we go to wide receiver. Chris Olave, 7,200. Most expensive by 1,100. I want Chris Olave. I want him in this matchup. This is a really good game script for him. Definitely paying up for him. But guess what? It's 1,100 from Amari Cooper, but Amari Cooper does not appear to be in, so it's 1,700 to his teammate, Michael Thomas. Yet again, I like Michael Thomas. You know who else I like? Rashid Shaheed, 4,200. You could play two of them in your lineup. I might have two of them in my lineup, right? There's not a lot of solid plays. These are some ugly matchups with some ugly teams right now, right? Amari Cooper's out. That's a huge loss. Deontay Johnson's out. That's a huge loss. Alvin Kamara is suspended. That's a huge loss. it's just not pretty. So Chris Olave 7,200, yes, I'm gonna get Chris Olave a lot. Michael Thomas, same thing, 5,500. It's a $1,700 discount. Like I said, this is a slate. There's not a lot to pay up on. Nick Chubb 8,500 is the most expensive. You could play Nick Chubb and get these guys if you want to feel comfortable of using more salary and getting safer. By all means, go right ahead, and you can afford it in this slate. So Michael Thomas 5,500, George Pickens 5,400. I don't love George Pickens. I don't like Allen Robinson, right? I have Allen Robinson as a fade play. His matchup is just terrible, right? George Pickens isn't really that much better, but he's the wide receiver one with Deontay Johnson out, and you have to target the wide receiver one, right? Not necessarily going to be the greatest volume, but he's going to get volume at 5,400. I'm going to get exposure to him. I have to. It's just the way it is. But Elijah Moore, though, 4,500 Elijah Moore is the wide receiver one right now with Amari Cooper out. So Elijah Moore, 4,500, a huge discount for me. Like I said, it's not the greatest matchup. It's not even a really good matchup. But they're going to have to pass the ball eventually. They brought Elijah Moore in for a reason. They had a good connection in the offseason, had a good connection in week one. So 4,500 Elijah Moore, yes, I definitely want a good amount of exposure to. Allen Robinson, just one of the worst matchups. According to PFF, looking at all the numbers there, Allen Robinson just has a really, really bad matchup. So I'm definitely fading him. Shaheed is a good pay down piece at 4,200, right? Saves you 3,000 from Olave. So if you wanted to do a Michael Thomas and Shaheed stack with Derek Carr, you could easily do it in this slate. And you could pay up for Nick Chubb. You could pay up for Nahaji. You could pay up for all of them and still have money. So definitely a player like DJ Chark. Watching the injury news, if he's out, Adam Thielen and Jonathan Mingo are my two pieces on Carolina that I would target in this matchup, right? I don't like Terrace Marshall. I don't like Laviska. I don't like DJ Chark if he's in. I like Adam Thielen and Jonathan Mingo. Those are my two. I don't have them projected crazy, but they're my two that I want exposure to if Carolina is able to move the ball against New Orleans. Because if they are and I have zero exposure, that does me no good. But if someone were to, these are my two guys I like. We heard a lot about Laviska being used in a Deebo Samuel role. Haven't seen it in the preseason. Definitely didn't see it last week. So if that's going to happen, it happens. I'm not looking at it right now. I'm not willing to take that risk yet. But an interesting play here is Calvin Austin at 3,500. Right, George Pickens, obviously the wide receiver one. Allen Robinson, a bad matchup. Calvin Austin, 6 targets last week, which is interesting. Granted, Deontay Johnson down, but 3,500 for someone like Calvin Austin, who, if Cleveland gets a good lead and Pittsburgh has to throw the ball, look for someone like him to get some targets. I don't like Fairmouth. I don't like Allen Robinson. So George Pickens, Calvin Austin, and the two that I like in this matchup as far as pass catchers, right? Running back is a different story. Pass catchers, those are my two. And then just some more value plays, right? Guys that I'm going to get exposure to. Cedric Tillman, David Bell, Marquise Goodwin. We'll kind of see what the injury report looks like if Amari Cooper is officially out, like confirmed 100% out, which everything points to yes, he's out already. We already know he's out. But I'm not going to fully 100% guarantee lock it in, but I want some exposure to these three guys in that matchup. I just think there's an opportunity for one of these guys to have a good game, so I want to have exposure to all three and hopefully get the right one in more of my lineups than less. So that is it for the DraftKings Monday slate. Like I said, if you guys are interested in joining us, the link for that will be in the description down below. You can get this spreadsheet. Will be posted on the day before on main slates and on showdowns. It'll be posted on the day of. So if you guys are interested, just message me and click the link for our Discord and message me on that. And we can go from there. So hope you guys did enjoy the video, and I will see you in the next one.